A WNBA star just walked away from professional basketball, and the official statements about pursuing overseas opportunities or taking time for personal growth are hiding the real story. This isn't about a bigger contract in Turkey or a strategic trade to a contender. This is about systemic pressures inside locker rooms, front office dysfunction, and a league structure that's forcing players to choose between their mental health and their careers. The carefully worded press releases don't mention the toxic team dynamics, the unchecked behavior from teammates that coaching staffs ignored, or the reality that speaking up about these issues can get you labeled as a problem player and pushed out faster than any performance slump ever could. The WNBA is experiencing a quiet exodus that has nothing to do with salary caps or international contracts. Players are leaving because the environments they're walking into are breaking them down from the inside. 12 roster spots per team means there's no room for error, but it also means there's no room for conflict resolution. When a locker room goes toxic, management has to choose between protecting their investment in a star player or listening to role players who don't have guaranteed contracts. That calculation gets made behind closed doors, and the player who loses that battle gets framed as taking a personal leave or exploring other opportunities, when the reality is they were pushed out by a system that prioritizes winning over wellness and protects certain players while sacrificing others. Right now, multiple WNBA veterans are weighing whether their next contract is worth the mental toll of environments where problematic behavior goes unchecked because a player is too valuable to discipline. We're tracking every practice report, every subtle social media shift, and every front office decision that reveals which organizations actually protect their players and which ones just protect their bottom line. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're ahead of the next departure before the carefully crafted statement drops, because the real reasons are always buried in what the team doesn't say. The conversation around WNBA player departures has been dominated by salary comparisons with overseas leagues and the expansion draft creating roster uncertainty. Those are real factors. A EuroLeague contract in Turkey can pay 3 times what a WNBA mid-level deal offers, and the addition of Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire means 48 new roster spots opened up, while also creating anxiety about protection lists and which veterans might lose their jobs to younger, cheaper talent. But that narrative is missing the human element. When players delete team photos from Instagram before official announcements, when teammates post cryptic supportive messages that subtly criticize management, when a departure is announced with 0 quotes from the player herself, those are signals that the real story involves interpersonal conflict, organizational dysfunction, or locker room dynamics that became unsustainable. According to multiple league sources reported in January 2025, players were unhappy with dynamics created in the Chicago Sky locker room due to Chennedy Carter's behavior, which went unchecked by former coach Teresa Weatherspoon. There was concern within the team regarding how re-signing Carter would impact the environment, with some players reportedly making it clear they didn't want to return if Carter remained on the roster. This isn't speculation or gossip. This is beat reporters confirming that front office decisions about who to re-sign and who to let walk were directly influenced by locker room tensions that coaching staffs failed to address during the season. The Sky ultimately did not re-sign Carter, but the damage was done. Players had already spent months in an environment where behavior that disrupted team chemistry went unaddressed because the coaching staff either didn't notice, didn't care, or didn't feel empowered to discipline a player who was productive on the court. Sophie Cunningham, a veteran guard who played for the Indiana Fever during the 2024 season before moving to the Phoenix Mercury, made comments in June 2025 about Fever locker room dynamics that raised eyebrows across the league. While she didn't name specific players or incidents, her remarks about how certain locker rooms handle the pressure of rookie phenoms and veteran resentment suggested that Indiana's environment during Caitlin Clark's historic rookie season wasn't as harmonious as public narratives suggested. The Fever went from worst in the league to playoff contenders in one season, which sounds like a fairy tale, but rapid success built on the back of one player can create internal friction. Veterans who struggled through losing seasons suddenly find themselves playing secondary roles to a rookie who gets all the endorsements, all the media attention, and all the credit for the turnaround. When organizations don't proactively manage that dynamic with veteran leadership summits, team building investments, or equitable spotlight sharing, resentment festers. The broader systemic issue is that the WNBA's compressed schedule, low base salaries, and roster scarcity create environments where players are constantly fighting for survival rather than building sustainable careers. Training camp cuts happen in 48-hour windows. Hardship contracts last as long as the injured player is on the sidelines. The lack of guaranteed contracts for most players means that even if you make the roster, you're one coaching change or one front office philosophical shift away from being waived. That survival mentality breeds competition instead of camaraderie. And when you add in the pressure of social media scrutiny, fan expectations, and the knowledge that 12 roster spots serve hundreds of qualified players, the mental health toll becomes crushing. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, which includes a free agency moratorium that began January 9, 2026, has frozen player movement and created additional anxiety. Players who might have left toxic situations for fresh starts with new teams are stuck waiting for the league and players' union to finalize terms. Meanwhile, the expansion draft process forced every existing team to submit protection lists, exposing which players management valued and which ones were expendable. For a player already dealing with locker room issues or feeling scapegoated for team failures, that experience is devastating. It confirms that their concerns don't matter, their contributions aren't valued, and the league sees them as expendable. The league's response to these systemic issues has been inadequate. There's no robust infrastructure for conflict resolution, no mandatory team culture consultants, no transparent accountability when coaching staffs fail to address problematic behavior. The WNBA Players Association has pushed for better mental health resources, but those resources don't fix a locker room where a star player is making everyone miserable and management won't intervene because she's averaging 18 points per game. Players are left with impossible choices: stay silent and endure the toxic environment while your mental health deteriorates, speak up and risk being labeled difficult, which can follow you to the next team when free agency finally opens, or walk away entirely. Take an overseas contract where at least the bigger paycheck compensates for the dysfunction, and let the WNBA release a statement about pursuing international opportunities that completely erases the real reason you left. The financial incentive to go overseas has always existed, but in 2025 and 2026, the trend of mid-career players choosing European or Asian leagues over WNBA contracts has accelerated in ways that salary alone doesn't explain. Yes, a Turkish or Spanish club can pay $200,000 for a season compared to the WNBA's mid-tier salary of $75,000. But players are also citing the professionalism of international organizations, the respect they receive from coaching staffs abroad, and the absence of the toxic social media environment that surrounds the WNBA. Overseas, they're athletes. In the WNBA, they're content for debates about who deserves Rookie of the Year or who's responsible for a team's success, and those debates spill into locker rooms and create divisions that management doesn't have the tools or willingness to address. The expansion draft was supposed to be a positive inflection point. Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire joining for the 2026 season meant 48 new jobs, more opportunities for players on the roster bubble, and a chance for organizations to build culture from scratch without inheriting dysfunction. But the expansion process also exposed how many players felt undervalued by their current teams. When Toronto and Portland passed on certain veterans who were left unprotected, those players experienced double rejection. Their original team didn't value them enough to protect them, and the expansion teams didn't think they were worth selecting. For a player already dealing with locker room issues or feeling scapegoated for team failures, that experience is devastating. It confirms that their concerns don't matter, their contributions aren't valued, and the league sees them as expendable. The hardship contract system, which allows teams to sign additional players when injuries deplete rosters, has become a symbol of the league's instability. Indiana led the league with 9 hardship signings in 2025, a record that reflects both injury luck and organizational churn. For players cycling through hardship contracts, the experience is exhausting. You get a call that a team needs you for 2 weeks, you uproot your life, fly across the country, learn a new system, try to prove yourself in limited minutes, and then get waived the moment the injured player returns. You're technically employed, but you have no stability, no ability to plan your life, and no guarantee that performing well will lead to anything permanent. Some players thrive in that chaos and use hardship contracts as auditions for future full-time deals. Others burn out and decide the instability isn't worth the mental health cost. Social media has amplified every one of these dynamics. When a player underperforms or a locker room conflict becomes public, fans dissect every Instagram story, every deleted photo, every cryptic tweet. That level of scrutiny doesn't exist in men's professional basketball at the same intensity because NBA rosters are larger, contracts are guaranteed, and players have more financial security to insulate themselves from fan criticism. WNBA players are accessible, often flying commercial, interacting directly with fans on social media, and dealing with both adoration and vicious criticism without the same level of organizational support or financial cushion. When a locker room conflict goes public, the player with a smaller fan base or fewer endorsements usually loses that public relations battle, which then influences how management handles the situation. The player who's a social media lightning rod gets protected because cutting her means backlash from her fan base. The player who's well-liked but not famous gets sacrificed to keep the peace. The mental health impact of these systemic issues is finally being acknowledged, but acknowledgement without structural change doesn't solve anything. Players are increasingly open about anxiety, depression, and burnout, but when the underlying causes are roster scarcity, toxic locker rooms, management dysfunction, and a league structure that prioritizes short-term winning over long-term player wellness, adding a sports psychologist to the staff doesn't fix the problem. Players need guaranteed contracts that give them job security. They need coaching staffs trained in conflict resolution and held accountable when they allow toxic dynamics to fester. They need front offices that prioritize culture as much as talent and don't make decisions based purely on who has the highest scoring average. They need a players' union with the leverage to demand structural changes, not just incremental improvements to healthcare benefits. The WNBA is at a crossroads. The league is experiencing unprecedented growth in viewership, sponsorship revenue, and cultural relevance. Caitlin Clark's rookie season brought millions of new fans. Expansion is bringing new markets and new investment. But if the league doesn't address the systemic issues driving players away, that growth will be undermined by an exodus of talent that has nothing to do with overseas salaries and everything to do with unsustainable work environments. Players shouldn't have to choose between their WNBA dreams and their mental health. They shouldn't have to endure toxic locker rooms because speaking up gets them labeled difficult. They shouldn't have to read carefully worded press releases that erase the real reasons they left. The next wave of departures is already brewing. Veteran players are weighing whether their next contracts are worth the environments they'll be walking into. Role players who survived this year's roster cuts are wondering if the mental health cost of fighting for 12 roster spots every season is sustainable. Stars who have the leverage to demand trades or walk away are watching how management handles conflict in culture, and they're making decisions based on which organizations actually protect their players versus which ones just protect their investments. The official statements will talk about pursuing international opportunities, focusing on personal growth, or exploring new chapters, but the real reasons will be buried in what those statements don't say. The locker room dynamics that went unaddressed, the front office decisions that prioritized winning over wellness, the systemic pressures that made walking away the only option that protected their mental health. This isn't about one player or one team. This is about a league structure that needs to evolve. The WNBA has made incredible progress in visibility and investment, but infrastructure hasn't kept pace. Players deserve environments where they can thrive, not just survive. They deserve coaching staffs equipped to manage interpersonal conflict. They deserve front offices that make culture a priority. They deserve a union with the power to demand those changes. Until those systemic issues get addressed, we're going to keep seeing stars walk away, and the official statements are going to keep hiding the real reasons why.